Welcome in, wrong side of the pond. He is DJ Schweitzer. I am Jeremy Lance. We're back after our holiday break, and what an amazing time to be back.
I know, right? We thought
2020.
We thought 2020 was really, there was nowhere to go but up after that year of infamy came to an end, and while 2021 seemed to get off to an okay start, it really just dragged us right back into 2020 pretty quickly, didn't it?
Yeah. I think some people have said hopefully this is the post-credits sequence. You know, when you watch a movie and like after the credits there's that like extra bonus scene.
Yeah. I saw someone describe it as this is just December 37th or 38th of 2020 now. And then we'll eventually tick over into 2021 here in the next, 2 weeks or roughly in that time frame. But yeah, it's been a pretty chaotic start to 2021, which is why we're recording a little bit later in the week so we could just give our brains an opportunity to rest, reset, get a little bit more comfortable, something along those lines.
Yeah, digest sort of the everything that's happening.
Yeah, never mind the fact that we had the typical and even more exaggerated holiday fixture pile up over in the Premier League. At least it's been super chaotic over there as we've watched just the table fluctuate in completely wild ways, and we've been talking about this all season long. Like anything could happen this year, and this holiday break was pretty much that in a nutshell, and it on its own has been a lot to process.
Yeah, I mean, so much going on. It's funny, we last recorded like right before Christmas, and like I feel like the amount of movement that certain clubs have had since we last talked is so wild. Like, I mean, before we last talked, like Chelsea had a hiccup, but things hadn't gone too bad yet. Obviously things have gone a lot worse. United and City were still like, they were gonna doing okay, but like they were still like way over there, right? They were like way like, okay, yeah, I see them. They're doing all right, but like they're still over there. So I don't know if they're gonna get all the way here anytime soon. And that is also not the case.
Nope. It's just been like Spurs were in their own downturn when you were talking about Chelsea, and then Chelsea had a little bit of a rise, and it looked like Spurs were trading and trending downward, and they've kind of flopped places within that little spectrum that they're in. We've seen the Manchester sides just continue to shoot up the table. Southampton, they remain in the mix somehow. It's just been a really wild, chaotic season, kind of reflective of the year that we've just ended. But it's been really enjoyable. Like, if nothing else, this holiday fixture period sometimes can be a little bit of a bore, right? Like teams try to rotate squads a little bit, and they are trying to watch out for injuries, but they've been doing that all season long. And so we just maintained this steady flow of insanity in the Premier League, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, and plus, like, by the time we hit the Christmas period, the last couple seasons, we were kind of already narrowed down to like 2 to 3 clubs that seemed like they actually were in the hunt.
Right.
Like, it was already narrowed down. Like, the past couple years, it was already narrowed down. It's City or Liverpool. And that's not the case at all right now. We are dealing with a top of the table that's wide open, and in a lot of ways, it's still anybody's race. A lot of those anybody's aren't doing themselves favors to actually continue to stay in that discussion. But yeah, I mean, it's still very up in the air, very crazy. We'll dive into that in a second. We do have to do fantasy, I guess, right? Do we have to actually still do that?
I mean, no one's holding us to that. But
I mean, there's nothing legally binding us to saying it. I mean, even the people that won, they can literally just go look on the website.
Yeah, they really can. It's not something that we're hiding. But basically, I just keep it here out of tradition's sake and for the sake of self-flagellation, right? Like that's just need to know how bad we
Right.
are at this every week to remind ourselves that we really don't know what's going on. For someone who does know that's going on, Tyler Kelly, 4 shows in a row. Ole can't drive, sitting at the top of the table. I'm in 38th place. I'll be honest. I didn't update where you are. I'm guessing you're down in the like 60s
Not
and
doing
70s.
well.
Yeah, probably somewhere in that neck of the woods.
If you
Um,
didn't see me when you were looking at all the other numbers, I wasn't in a position to talk about.
you're still off the first page.
Okay.
But I know. Trust. I fell off the first page over the course of the holiday break, and have
Yeah.
crept my way back in there. So much as things are wild in the real world of the Premier League, it is wild in the fantasy world. Maybe you'll end up in the top half. Maybe you'll be champion, Jeremy. Remember, you were a monthly champion not long ago.
I still need to get my wristband. I still need
You
to get
really
my
do.
added out time wristband.
Yeah, you really do. If you aren't keen to what Jeremy's talking about, you can earn an added time. Uh, you can earn your own added time outfitters wristband if you manage to be the top monthly points earner in our fantasy Premier League over at PremierLeague.com. So go check that out. You can get into the league, compete, and potentially win yourself a cool soccer wristband. So there's your fantasy update. Self-flagellation update is over, and let's get into probably, I think the best place to start is with the Manchester sides.
Well, I mean, we are, by the time we record next, possibly talking about top of the table Manchester United. And the crazy thing about all of that, and it kind of bleeds into, and this discussion is not some like new one that I've just made up. It's a discussion that a lot of people have been having right now, is like, it wasn't but a month or so ago that Ole, much like a lot of the other managers that are at these bigger clubs that are maybe a little green, maybe a little newer on the scene, it's been, is it time's up for him? Is it time's up for Ole? Is it time's up for Arteta? Is it time's up for Lampard? And for at least 2 of those, I don't think anyone's talking about that right now anymore. Like that's gone away. Winning cures all.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, on this very show, we've talked about how Ole's been on borrowed time, and I think that was this season. Like, I didn't go back and look
This
because we
season,
don't
it was like,
3 episodes ago.
yeah, I was gonna say it was
Yeah.
a handful of shows ago.
You'd think that we'd actually go back and look, but that's not the type of podcast this is.
No.
But regardless, there were at times this year that he looked like dead man walking right there. Like I can't believe he's still there. And we were all like, oh well, Ed Woodward's not going to get rid of him. He doesn't know what he's doing anyway. And maybe Ed slightly knows something, or maybe this is just dumb luck. But United are right on the cusp, and maybe this too is just because this is one of these wild seasons. Like maybe this is what this is all about. But I mean, he's there right now. What else can you say? But he's got himself level on points at the top of the table with Liverpool, behind on goal difference. But if they win their match in hand, and compete from that point forward, they're going to be at the top of the table.
Yeah, I said a minute ago, like, winning cures all, talking about the Ole thing, but for United, winning cures all in like so many other big problems that everyone just always wanted to talk about. No one's talking about, oh my gosh, this Pogba thing's a disaster. That's not being talked about right now as it was just weeks ago. Remember, De Gea was on the what? Like, De Gea was like going to get replaced here mid-season. Nope, that's got, like, that discussion's over with too right now. Like, all their problems at the moment that looked so very much like they were going to be their undoing have all just kind of faded. And at the moment, and this is a table that has been topsy-turvy, so who knows, just as much as we were talking about Ole getting canned a month ago, we could be right back in that discussion come February 1st. Who knows? But like for right now, like all is well.
Yeah, and that is the way, like, as the world turns in the Premier League at the moment. Like next week, he could find himself in some hot water again, and or he could find himself with a more comfortable lead at the top of the table. Like no one expected Liverpool to slip up in the way that they did in the last couple weeks to open that door to allow United to do that. No one suspected that United, even with their tremendous away form and their stuttering home form, would somehow find themselves up at the top of the table, and yet they are. Like just a month ago, we were talking about how good I felt about Spurs title prospects. And now we find ourselves talking about like Manchester United back at the top of the table. And we haven't even talked yet about the idea of like how long has it been since they've been in that position? Like at
A
this
long
deep
time.
into a season.
I think, well, like, was it Mourinho's first year that they like had a period of a season where they were like right up in the mix, right?
Yeah.
You did it, yeah. And I mean that feels like forever ago. Obviously, we always talk about the fact that the Sir Alex era that technically predates this podcast. Like that just seems farther and farther away. And it's crazy that there are so many people that have gotten into the Premier League in the past 5 years that this is like legitimately possibly one of the first times they've seen United as like, oh wow, this is like that United I've heard about. Like this is that big boy team that's like right up there in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those teams that has a decent number of fans, and the lore of Manchester United is obviously kept up by the way they're spoken about and their games are broadcast and yada yada yada. But it is wild to think, like, to me, it's like, God damn it, they're back. But for a lot of people, they're like, oh, this is kind of exciting, and that's a unique perspective that as a longer term fan, it's hard to remember that this is an exciting thing, where a lot of us who have been paying attention to the game for a long time, and even the natives who will be like, yeah, this has been a reality for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
um this is a little bit of a like, oh great, like are they have they finally
we were
gotten their
getting
act
too
together?
used to it.
Yeah, like I
We
was
were getting
comfortable
too
with the
used
idea of
to United
Manchester
being
United.
trash.
Yeah, like if they weren't trash, like that makes it harder for my team to be a relevant portion of the conversation. And by them becoming trash, and the same way that Liverpool were kind of garbage there before Klopp's returning them to their prominence, that opened windows up for clubs like Chelsea and for Spurs, and at times Everton, and other clubs like Leicester to find their foothold in this mega club, this big club conversation. So, yeah, it's weird. Like it feels weird seeing some people excited about it, and some just kind of being like, great, here we are again. Like, did they finally get their act together?
Part of the way we got to this point though with United is the fact that like out of nowhere on the heels of that pre-Christmas 7-0 thrashing of Crystal Palace in a stretch where they played West Brom, Newcastle, and Southampton, Liverpool got 2 points out of those 3 matches.
Yeah, if you'd look at that
like
stretch,
I don't know where all of a sudden Liverpool just whoop.
We've talked about this for a while, and we saw it at the tail end of last season. Like, I think this is the same effects. Like, they played at an unworldly level for like a 2.5 year period. And they finally, the pandemic helped it along to that point, and they were kind of, mediocre almost after the return to play last season. But this team looks tired. They are facing an injury crisis with a number of defenders out. I mean, last week they had what was it, Fabinho and Henderson playing like a center back pairing. Like those are two of their best midfielders. So that's a problem they're having to deal with. There's been talk that Mo Salah is ready to move on to a new challenge. There's talk that Mane is a little unsettled and doesn't like having to share the ball as much as he does have to with a lot of the other stars that they have in this attack. There's just a lot of things that are building up with Liverpool, and I'm not suggesting that they're not gonna like win the title this year or they're still not the best team in the Premier League, because I think arguably they still are, even all those things considered. But that does help to explain the last 3 weeks that they have experienced too.
No, I mean 100%. I mean I think you made the point there at the beginning. Like it was inconceivable that they could sustain this level of dominance, just consistently match over match for this long. Like there was gonna be this period, and especially with they start this season off and they lose their top center back, one of those guys that we talked about, after winning it all last season. Like you look at Van Dijk and Alisson, who also missed some matches early on this season. Those were the kind of the two last pieces that they needed to win to win the title, win the Champions League, like kind of get to that next level. And they don't have Van Dijk for I'm assuming the rest of the season. I don't know. I haven't looked at what the update is on that return. I don't see a reason for him to chance it by rushing back. So it made sense that this was eventually going to happen. Question is how long. The question is, what does this side end up doing to kind of get themselves right? We are in that January window. This has not been a club that's in this period of dominance outside of that big Christmas time Van Dijk signing where he was standing there next to his little Christmas tree at his house with his jersey. This is not a team that's like just gonna solve an issue like this by throwing crazy money around in January. So I don't know. I don't think they do anything, or am I wrong here?
I mean, would I be shocked if they did something? Like they can afford it, right? Like this isn't a club that's
they've been able to afford it for a lot more years than their fans will admit to. It's just, will they?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could see them feeling a pressure and a need to buy a center back given everything that's transpiring in that portion of the pitch for them. But I don't know. I mean, they may very well end up finding themselves content with the situation, and they'll continue playing midfielders as center backs, and they'll continue playing pretty good football, even if it's not at the ultimate elite level that they were playing at the beginning of last season and the previous season and a half before that. So I don't know. I mean, look, we opened the show by talking about how anything could happen. And I do think anything could happen still, right? Like Liverpool aren't playing at world-beating level. City are stuttering, although they're finding themselves on the climb. United are good, but maybe they still have fatal flaws. No one seems to have it on lock, right? Like no one is running away with this thing this year in the way that Liverpool did last year. Like Liverpool were kind of crap at the end of last year, and they still won the league comfortably. And this year, aside from the direction that Sheffield United are dragging the bottom of the table, there are going to be no insurmountable point gaps this year.
So Liverpool has an FA Cup match like everyone else this weekend. That one may or may not happen. Aston Villa. We'll get to that topic in a second, but that one may or may not happen. Next Sunday, they play United at home. That could be early 2021 pivotal match that could really set the course for the way the rest of this second half of the season kind of shakes out. And they play Burnley at the midweek after that, and then late in January they play Thursday against Spurs, and then they play a Sunday game against West Ham. West Ham's kind of been a tricky out, sort of, for some teams, but obviously Spurs should be up for it. Hopefully, are up for it. I don't know I don't know when is the Caribou Coffee Cup final? That's not going to be like right around then, and Jose's going to be resting people, is he?
Nah, it's not until April. So I mean, it's not even. Yeah, I know, right? That really smacked me when I went and looked it up as well.
I'm not even sure I'm gonna want to like watch soccer by April. Like, what?
No,
it seems way too far away.
By April, we could be in the midst of a nuclear winter. We really have no clue. But it's it's forever from now. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, the idea of a Liverpool Manchester United match being of any consequence, like
that's been a while.
Yeah, like almost like 10 years, 15 years maybe since that's been a true rivalry of
since
any
they've
importance.
Been the top two dogs in the league, yeah.
So
it has been that is going to be a good one. Can't wait to watch that on Peacock.
Yeah, right. It will be on Peacock, which means for anyone who forks out the money to watch this paywalled monstrosity, that means it'll totally be a boring game. Like, it's going to be garbage.
1-1.
If we're lucky.
Both penalties.
Yeah, right.
Well, Bruno's though, you can always pencil him in for one penalty.
Oh, I mean, he's good for one penalty in the second half most matches.
Leicester City hanging around there, by the way. Like, I think they kind of are still getting lost in the shuffle. Like, they're still there, just like they were last year. They're still there. I don't know what their longevity is. There are a lot of, City's kind of still on their way up. So that's another team that's going to force their way into that top four here in a moment. Everton and Southampton seem that they're content to stay around. Chelsea they exist mostly. We'll see what happens. They're ninth right now. They're not even. I have to scroll down here to find. They are.
I'm gonna spare you diving into this for the sake of this week's show and how hard life has been for everyone in America for the last couple days. So we'll spare you that one. But once we get into a normal flow of things, we'll revisit and see how Chelsea are doing after this week.
Hey, all I can say is, with all this German influence we got on the team, and with Christian Pulisic being one of the key cogs in our attack, maybe it won't be so bad when we finally have to hire Thomas Tuchel this summer.
Oh, it's a destiny that's awaiting you at this point, right?
It's inevitable.
Yeah. How comfortable are you feeling about Frank being dismissed?
If his name wasn't Frank Lampard, if this was just Joe manager, this dude is literally one more really bad blowout loss away from probably getting canned.
What Chelsea? Such a throwaway culture there, man.
This is what we do. This is what we do. This is the call, like, to the point where us as supporters are conditioned to think this way now. Like, it's the supporters that should kind of be the ones clinging to, like, hey, let's keep this guy. No, like, the supporters, all of us know, like, the second things go bad, like, this guy's days are numbered.
Yeah. It's you feel bad for him because he really overperformed last season with no investment. And that's a little bit of a kind way of explaining it, given that it's Chelsea and the players they already had at their disposal. But at the same time, he did well with what he had at his disposal. And
last year
this year,
he got a young, inexperienced attack to play with heart and play kind of for the greater purpose of Frank and the club and all that. And this year he's got a lot of high priced pieces that are finding the Premier League a bit too rough for their liking. And I think you're going to find this weird part where Frank is going to eventually have to decide, do I want to keep my job or do I want to prove that all these signings actually were a good idea? Because we might get to that point where it may be an either or. Because I think to keep his job, he might have to kind of go back to I don't know, he might just kind of have to go lean on the guys that got him through last year. Go lean on Mason and Tammy and Christian to get him through like he did last year.
Rescue me.
Yeah.
But I do think it's worth saying, you would hope, and I understand Abramovich doesn't operate this way, but you'd hope that he would have bought himself some goodwill to see out this rebuilding to make themselves competitive. It is tough to integrate that many new players into an attack and get it working well. And you'd love to think that a manager who's given that much investment would get 2 years to see if it can make it work. But that's just not how it is at Chelsea. And I get what you're saying.
This is year 2.
Conditioned to this.
This is, I think, because he is Frank Lampard, he will at least be invited to year 3. Whether he gets to survive it is another thing, but he will at least be offered a 3rd year.
Yeah, it seems unlikely.
Let's talk about one of the other things, and we kind of alluded to it with FA Cup matches coming and some of them already being in doubt. Like everywhere else in the world, the UK is experiencing a bit of an influx of COVID-19 cases. And we are kind of at this point, we're dealing with rates that are so much higher than we were dealing with when we were shutting things down and not having leagues and stuff like that. And we are proceeding now in times where numbers are way above those. And thus, we are getting what we had this week with 40, which again, over several thousand people are like, well, that's not that many, but 40 positives across the league. Obviously, if those 40 positives were mingling amongst those within the league, that number becomes larger come, next Monday.
For sure. I think this was a big storyline throughout the festive period. And
we had a few matches, postponed.
Yeah,
so
and
it
frankly,
it's up to the front.
Yeah, it's a little miraculous that we made it this far into the season without having that happen. I am truly a bit shocked, and I'm also like everyone. This is rightly a talking point. I think we should be talking about this, but it's also kind of like COVID cases are spiking so much everywhere else, and it's not just in the U.S. where that's predictable, but it's also in Europe, and it's also in England where this new strain has come to the fore. And
where you have the leaked documents from the NSA basically saying that they are going to reach capacity very, very soon. Very soon.
Much as we're seeing throughout various locales in the U.S. And frankly, this really shouldn't be surprising that we're seeing the highest number of infections, the first matches being called off. The reason why that's happening is the same reason that we're seeing all the other growth everywhere else. It was the holiday period, and people went and did what people do at holidays despite all the warnings, and they got bit in the ass for it. Exactly.
And much like people storming a Capitol building, a lot of those people that were celebrities and footballers felt inclined to put it on social media. So like, there's dudes like, what was it? Mitch had that party that a bunch of people went to for New Year's, where everyone's just hanging out like a New Year's party would, where everyone's just all up in everyone else's business, no mask, dancing around, drinking, and it's just shooting spittle all over, spittle and other things all over every place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we talked on one of the last shows about Neymar having his huge, supposedly underground party. He's since come out and disputed that while he did have the party, it wasn't as big as claimed. There was whatever. I don't care.
It was above ground.
It doesn't matter. But Spurs, we saw Reguilón, Lamela, and Lo Celso forced out of playing because they had a Latino Christmas gathering. Even Mourinho was super pissed because he thought Reguilón was going to be alone for Christmas, so he went out and bought him another fancy ass ham. And and then when he found out, and it was in the post match presser, the anger was palpable, like pure Mourinho rage. In a way that we haven't really seen.
Mourinho did mention that those hams were costing him like £500.
Oh yeah, they're pricey. We've seen City have 2 matches called off. Fulham have had 2 matches called off. You mentioned Aston Villa earlier. It's easy.
They closed their training facility today.
Yeah. It's easy to throw barbs at a lot of these people that we kind of expect to do that, but like even beacon of like social progressiveness in sports, like someone like Alex Morgan. Is now infected with COVID, and her family is infected with COVID, and U.S. Soccer and the NWSL are looking into how that happened too. So
she said how it happened. She went somewhere for the holidays.
Yeah, they went to California.
Literally said it.
And visited family, and it's frustrating, but it's also a reflection of the society that we're in. Like, why are we surprised? And even I hate to say it because we should be condemning them and we should be calling them out for this. But why are we holding them to a different standard than the majority of the people who watch and enjoy this sport as well? Like, that's what I find to be troubling. And the only reason why I think some fans get pissed off about it is because it potentially impacts the team results or even getting to play to begin with. And like much of everything else, it's just that hypocriticalness. It's just like, ugh. Like, yeah, these guys are jerks for throwing parties, but at the same time, like, you did too, probably. I mean, I'm not you, but you listener or hypothetical fan, like, you probably threw one too. And it's tough. It's tough to watch it all go down.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all knew this is how this period was going to go. People are inclined to want to do that in the holidays. And even those that probably felt like they maybe made the best precautions to kind of do things, like, you're still rolling the dice. Like, I mean, that's just the nature. And yeah, there is that whole thing of like, I think at this point, we've all become conditioned with the fact that, like, we're all sort of rolling the dice. Every day you leave your house or something comes into your house, like, you're gambling. But we've all been gambling since March, right? Like, we've all, so maybe after the lockdown. So we've all been gambling since like April or May. And as much as I think we just kind of all became accustomed to, like, okay, I think I can get away with, maybe it's not so bad, and maybe it's not, but like, clearly the numbers are going up. Like, it's not just magically happening, folks.
Well, think about it. It's kind of like, if one kid or 3 kids skip school, like, you could just assume that they're all sick. But if like the entire senior class goes skipping, like, you have something that it's a bigger deal. Like, clearly you got like a senior skip day that's going on, not like isolated incidences of kids skipping school. And Like if you look at the trend of it, like that explains the whole picture that you're looking at. And we're at a point now where when everyone's trying to do cheats, including professional footballers, yeah, you can get away with a cheat in normal circumstances, but when everyone's trying to cheat at the same time, it becomes very evident what the actual problem is. So
Right.
it's difficult to swallow, but it's no different than everyday life. And you almost like, and I guess I was alluding to this earlier when I was saying like I almost don't want to get mad at these players because we're judging them on a different scale than what we judge each other. But it's also kind of like I'm numb to it by now. Like it's the same thing about going to the grocery store and seeing people wearing their mask below their noses and whatever, right? Like of course this is happening. Like look at you. Like of course that's happening.
I like the guy that not only does it's not like his nose is exposed, but then it's also like hanging down, like it's like he has a giant underbite and he's just like just moving with his bottom
Yeah.
jaw, and you
It's
can
like,
see the
yeah,
whole
like
top of his mouth and his
a,
nose.
a robot jaw that just projects his spittle further up into the air
Yeah.
so it disperses further.
It just ramps it up.
Yep, just shoots it up into the air. Good 45-degree angle to maximize distance. But yeah, it's tough. And of course it was going to impact our football, and you can have this continuing moral discussion like should this even be happening? And obviously the answer is it's going to, but
It's going to, just like most other things are going to. Like we've across the globe, for the most part, have over the course of the year opened our certain parts of our lives back up, and no one really has the appetite to go the opposite direction at this point.
No. Look, like the UK just instituted another lockdown. Like literally they are back into no one's allowed to leave their house unless it's to get food or an emergency. And like and to work, excuse me. Non-essential workers have to work at home. But
so if your job is stupid, you stay home.
Right, but the Premier League was exempted from that. Lower league football, for the most part, was exempted from that. And like, why is the answer for that? I mean, we know, but like they should be following the same rules as everyone else. Like if we're really getting down to it, like the moral equation here. And of course, and when you think more about it, like footballers traveling around for upcoming international breaks, like, it couldn't be a worse time to be doing that. But
like they announced those like January camps, like rosters for the U.S. men's national team. I'm like, why? Why are we doing this?
Why are we doing this?
Stop it. First of all, this camp is the dumbest one all year. Why? And this is the worst time all year to do it. There has not been throughout this entire pandemic a worse time to have an international match. Like based on the numbers, you've now picked the moment to have the dumbest camp at the worst time.
Well, I mean, if we're expecting U.S. soccer to make great decisions, maybe we're the ones at fault here. But yeah, that's the situation we find ourselves in, and we'll get football games as they're promised to us, provided that the players all behave or the teams don't try to fake COVID infections so they can get a little break. And I guarantee that's happening. # Manchester City. But look, it's the reality.
They heard that the best way to heal and to stay and to get over the virus is to go to Dubai and party.
It's really hot there. The virus dies in the heat. So
right.
It's the dry heat.
Indeed, just kind of hang out there and just you're good.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Hey, we mentioned it a little bit ago. Spurs are actually going to be playing for a trophy?
Yeah, something like that.
I got three questions for this.
Do I sound half glass empty as I fill up my bourbon glass again to tackle this subject?
Fill her up, because here we go. Spurs into the Caribou Coffee Cup final. They will face Zach Steffen and Manchester City as they, in a day where no one was want to watch soccer, Zach Steffen made an amazing performance as he got the shutout against United. And by the way, we've all decided to not talk about the fact that his first act as a Premier League starter was to pick up a back pass. We're not stop. We're not. No one's ever going to talk about that again. Didn't happen. You didn't see it. If you have that game on your DVR,
just delete it.
You erase it now.
We don't need any. We need no memory of this.
But Spurs are into the final. They'll face City. That's a this has kind of been City's cup. They've been winning it lately. But for you guys, this is a big moment because it's been a minute since you guys have hoisted any kind of silverware that wasn't handed out in August.
Yeah. Preseason tournaments don't count as actual tournaments. The last time Spurs lifted a trophy was 2008 in this very competition over your boys.
That's right.
Nice header from Jonathan Woodgate deep into injury time to give us that win. Literally my greatest Spurs memory, probably that and the semifinal win at Ajax for the Champions League a couple years ago. I think that's definitely up there as well. But yeah, it's been a long time. It's been since 2014-15 since we've even been in a final. Ironically,
what happened in that one?
This cup final, and you guys avenged your prior loss against us in that cup
with Jose.
Yeah,
I have the cup. I have the cup. Like I have a coffee cup at the office that is the celebration of that. I believe it was Capital One Cup at the time, and Jose is like sprawled across the bottom of the trophy presentation, just all like, woo!
Oh, it's like a great picture. It's a great picture.
So here's my 3 questions for you guys. A, can you guys actually win this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Hey, everyone's got a puncher's chance. Coin flip at best, or at worst. 2, like, if you guys win this, where does that put Jose in as far as at least recent Spurs history?
I don't like this question.
Because here's the thing. Obviously Jose is replacing a very beloved manager who now plays for or who manages PSG as of this week. But he never won anything. Pochettino, 0 actual trophies at Spurs. Longer period at Spurs. Much beloved by Spurs faithful. The architect of the roster for the most part that has had this sustained good run for you guys. But at the end of the day, no trophies. Where Jose is going to possibly slide in here and get that coveted trophy for you guys.
Oh, man, I said I didn't like this question. It's a complicated one. Yeah, I mean, I think the easy analogy is to look back at someone like Harry Redknapp, the man who managed the last trophy hoisting in Spurs history. And I think generally you look back at Harry favorably. He drove a lot of people nuts. His idiosyncrasies and quirks, while very different to Mourinho's, are maddening as a fan. Like he at times seems so disinterested in his own job that it was frustrating to think like this guy is making these picks.
Did he let those giant dogs he owned take a dump on the pitch or anything like that?
I don't know. I'm trying to block a lot of that kind of stuff out of my memory, to be honest.
I don't know if that happened, but I know he's got those 2 giant dogs.
Well, and he was in the running for that England job, and then didn't get it, and like basically careened Spurs off the course of getting a Champions League qualification that was in the bag at that point.
Yeah,
that was the famous mind the gap season with Arsenal. And so why I find this to be an analogy is that I think a lot of people disliked Harry Redknapp as Spurs manager, as Spurs fans. But they're like, hey, we did good things under him. He got us into the Champions League. We won a trophy under him. Like we like this guy. I think that's how we'll kind of look at Mourinho unless he gets to something big. Look, I'm thirsty to drink from a cup right now. Like I don't care what tournament it is. I don't care who we win it, how we win it. I don't care. I want to validate this run that we've had because it has been great. And I do think Mourinho deserves a good standing, even if he's bringing a style that's not traditional Spurs all-out attack. Um, would I put him above Poch? No. Like I just don't think we can. Because Poch achieved a lot, grew the squad in its station, while also playing in what most would consider a very Spursy way, in a good respect, with that attacking oriented, like let's go for it attitude, which Mourinho is really, you know, done the opposite of, which is what Mourinho does, and you know what you're gonna get when you get him. But yeah, I don't give a damn. I'm fine with making Mourinho one of my favorite managers ever. If he wins me a trophy, like I can make that happen. Not to mention that I like the dude beforehand.
Um, more narrow this season. We don't know where you guys are going to finish in the table. You've had moments where it looks like you were going to finish very high in the table. We've had moments like the one we currently sit in, where it's not that much of a foregone conclusion where you're going to sit in it. You may drop out of that top four. But to win a trophy, albeit out of the depth chart of domestic trophies in England, it's better than the Johnson Paint one, but it's still not in the top two. It's the third best trophy in England, but it's a trophy.
Mm-hmm.
England. What would it mean for your season if at the end of the day you guys finish in an okay position in the league, but you got that trophy?
I think it's huge. I think it's the difference between seeing the project rebooted and losing a bunch of our players versus keeping a bunch of our good players and not having to restart this process. Look, I like Harry Kane is a generational player in any respect, and that we've had him for as long as we've had, and he's remained loyal to us is a great testament to him and the relationship he has with the club. But that dude is too good to stay here if we don't win him anything. And if you lose Harry Kane, you reset. Like you have to rebuild the way the team attacks to a certain extent because you don't find anyone. There's not a Harry Kane replacement waiting out there. Regardless, if there was, we couldn't afford him. So right. I think that's the type of situation that Spurs find themselves in. They need this trophy. It's something the club needs. And I think it will be validating. And while Mourinho doesn't play a style that most fans would prefer, this is a club it's trying to shed like that Spursy reputation, right? We're trying to shake off and become a team that's an Arsenal or a Liverpool or a Manchester United or a Chelsea or a City that is a true, like, teams fear us when they play us or know that even if they're off, like, they could do you on a day.
Oh, and
yeah. I think that's the mentality that Mourinho brings. I don't know that he's going to leave us with that, but I think if he gives us that trophy, it helps take us another step further in that direction.
I put on my notes at this point EPL whip, but I think we talked enough about matches that really mattered. So winners and wankers?
I think that's where we're at.
Who? Sometimes you just know, or you just have a good feeling that things might be similar. Who is your wanker?
I don't know. I really struggled with this because anything I chose seems so petty in like the world of reality right now.
Hey.
I like going for COVID stuff would be easy. We had a whole segment on that, so I went a little bit directionally different. I went to the New Jersey Teamsters, this lower league.
Yes.
American Soccer Club. I'm uncertain if they play in NISA or if they play in the UPSL or if they play in the MP. I really don't know. But
I
it's
don't understand any of that anymore.
there's a lot of weird stuff going on with this club in general. They like value themselves at like $30 million or $20 million
Seems
for
high.
some for some reason over
Does that come with a stadium? Like,
no, it was over like assets to be acquired in the future. Like it was such a stupid valuation. Regardless, there's some
wow.
really weird stuff going on with them, but they just rebranded and basically changed their already stupid name that's geared towards union workers in New Jersey, I guess. They changed it from Teamsters with an S at the end to Teamsters with a Z at the end. Their explanation for this was just trash fire terrible. They explained it as it's a way to help draw in Generation Z into soccer, which I don't even think Generation Z is having a problem getting into soccer. Like I don't
No.
think that's a problem at all. And
Go get a boomer
secondarily,
into soccer and come back and talk to me.
yeah. Secondly, that putting a Z at the end of anything is totally a boomer making a decision
That is
towards
literally
younger people.
that is the text version of putting your hat backwards and saying, "Hey, cool kids."
I say that as I look at my screenshot of myself that's playing with my backwards hat. But here's why I think this is probably the funniest reason. I think undoubtedly the reason for this pointless change to something that's clearly made up reasoning, I guarantee the actual Teamsters union probably sued them over or threatened a lawsuit over the use of the name Teamsters. I would put a mountain of money on that being the actual reason for it, and why they wouldn't just say that is even further proof that these people who name their team something this stupid shouldn't be running a soccer team in any.
Wasn't there a team, NPSL team that did like change it to like dogs with a Z?
Yes.
Dogs?
When this happened, when I was trying to decide how I was going to make this joke on Twitter, I literally looked up the Rochester River Dogs. And
yeah, the Rochester River Dogs.
Yeah, and I remember thinking back to this. They're owned by like a former military veteran, and I got attacked for making fun of them for that terrible branding because their owner was a veteran. I didn't even say anything about it, but I got attacked for that. So, just to give you an idea of the type of people who are supportive of the idea of putting Z's where S's are supposed to be, outside of, shoot, I'm not even gonna say that. Oktoberfest stuff doesn't count for that really either. Unless you're branding an Oktoberfest event, keep that crap off of your club brand.
My wanker this week is former Atlanta United player, current alleged insurrectionist, Andrew Carleton.
I thought long and hard about this one. I really did.
I mean, we can't not mention it.
I'm glad you're covering it, so I'm not taking the beating here.
If you've watched the news today or anytime this week, you may have heard of a little bit of a scuttlebutt that went on at the Capitol building. And if you were, for some reason, maybe you were a USL fan and you were trying to figure out where Andrew Carleton was going to sign next, you started following him on Instagram. And if you watch his Instagram stories on Tuesday, heading into Wednesday, he was letting you know that he was going to be in D.C. on January 6th, to stop the steal or help Trump or whatever.
No way, he signed for Loudoun United, right?
I don't know. Did he?
No.
I don't think that phone's ringing. There's no video or photos of him actually there, but he literally showed himself driving to DC in the middle of the night in one of and was like talking about, like, his other posts were like, "Hey, I'll be there to defend freedom on January 6th at DC at the White," whatever. So good luck. signing with another team.
Maybe he met up with Jeff Cameron there.
You must feel like Jeff Cameron's like, ooh.
This is Jeff Cameron strikes me more of a a traditional conservative.
Yeah. So good luck with that, bud.
Maybe there'll be a Proud Boys FC with a Z, at the end.
Gotta have a Z.
They'd probably be down for signing Andrew.
Your winner?
My winner this week. It's tough again to like find a little bit of light in the darkness at the moment. But how about Adidas and MLS reintroducing third kits going into the season? And not only third kits, but also teams are not going to be urged or faux required to wear white as their alternate kits any longer as well, supposedly.
Good. Those were getting a little too out of hand by how not those were getting to the point where they just looked like they were straight off the rack. Because all of the away kits were kind of just all turning into just very basic white kits with like a 3 stripes of whatever your primary color is, and then nothing else.
I mean, literally, FCC's their away kit for their first season in MLS was legitimately an off the rack kit. The shorts, the jersey, the socks, literally, you could buy all of them and put your own logos, or buy an FC Cincinnati crest online and seal all that stuff on yourself, right? And look, everyone hated that. There will still be the previous requirements that existed for third kits in MLS. There's going to be some sort of numeric number in sales that your team will have had to have made over the last few years in order to qualify to be able to do it. The reason for that is production cost associated with. They don't want to go through the expense of a new setup if they can't guarantee they're going to move a certain number of units. I think that's relatively fair. While not necessarily the only solution. I saw some people propose ideas like, well, if the team wants to foot the bill for production, like maybe that would be a reason to do it. I will tell you right now, FC Cincinnati, I have verified this. They have not moved enough kits to get into third kit territory for this season.
Considering over the past month, I bought 2 different FC Cincinnati kits for upwards of $20. Yeah, I would say that those have not moved the way they wanted them to.
No. So you'll see some of this, and I think there's some appropriate arguments to be made about how they could appropriately approach the third kit situation. But I think it's a good thing overall. I'm looking forward to hopefully what will be some variety in the kits this year. When you have one manufacturer, that's tough to make happen. But
yeah,
I think it's a good thing, if nothing else, at least from the aesthetical standpoint of how we enjoy the sport.
My winner, and it's kind of dumb, but like there's grass, there's actual grass, there's an actual pitch at the West End Stadium now. Like what? I didn't expect myself to get caught up as much as I did with the photos and the video of the sod being laid down and like grass actually being installed, and like that final picture, that final overhead shot of like the full pitch being laid down there, and like, dang, that's starting to really look like a soccer stadium, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's been a cool thing to watch that stadium rise out of a ground where you and I used to call matches.
Yeah, I used to run rec leagues there.
Yeah, and that our good friend Dave Satterwhite used to dream of doing that exact thing that they're doing there right now, which is a really neat thing to think about. I have thus far not really had my heartstrings tugged too much by it all. I know that building's going to do that to me at some point. And I agree with you that the video that the team released really was the first time that I really went, oh wow. Like,
yeah.
That's in Cincinnati, Ohio, right there.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I've a lot of really mixed feelings about, if you've listened to this podcast and you know anything about my personal history with the team.
Yeah,
There's a lot of emotional elements going on with that building for me. And at some point I'll divulge those in longer form. But yeah, it was pretty damn cool seeing that video come out. And I'm assuming that was a fourth floor creative video, but whoever put that together, they deserve some kudos. It was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, no, it was good stuff. It was pretty awesome. That's our show.
Yeah, first show in 2021 in the book.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. Hopefully we won't be entering nuclear winter after having disease-ridden winter to deal with. But yeah, nowhere to go up from here.
I mean, it's Ohio, so the sky will be gray for a while now, regardless.
Nothing but there to warm our souls up here at this point in the process. But as always, if you want to get involved, Jeremy's at Jeremy Lance at Twitter. I'm at Wrong Side of Pond. We'll talk to you guys sometime soon.
All righty, folks.
Bye.
Bye.